Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in just about 1 minute. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome again for those of you who've been joining us throughout the day to the School Mental Health Summit, Emerging Stronger and More Resilient, Learning from the COVID-19 Crisis. Today, we have our last session, Social and Emotional Learning, Champions Pave the Way, Elevating Teacher Leaders to Support Sustainable SEL. Very excited for this presentation where we have some teachers, some educators here with us who can talk from their personal experiences about how they've done this. I did want to let you know that we have another wonderful day of events scheduled for tomorrow. We have 4 sessions for tomorrow. You can see the first 3 sessions listed here. And our 4th and final session listed here. To see more about each of the sessions, you can visit our MHTTC School Mental Health Summit link, MHTTC School Mental Health Summit.rutgers.edu, where you can also find the links to register for each session. This conference is being sponsored by the Northeast and Caribbean Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, or MHTTC, at Rutgers. My name is Ann Murphy, and I am the director of the center, and I'll be hosting this session today. Here, if you've been with us, you've seen this throughout the day, but here is an image of the 10 regional MHTTC centers and where they're housed, along with our other population specific centers, the National American Indian and Alaska Native Center, and the National Hispanic and Latino Center, as well as our network coordinating office. We've received supplemental funding from SAMHSA to provide training and technical assistance consultation to educators and other school staff to support their efforts to provide mental health supports to students in schools. We do this by providing a variety of trainings and technical assistance activities. Here are some examples of those. We encourage you to sign up to receive our communications by going to the link here, which has also been added to the chat. We'd be happy to communicate with you as we go forward with our additional activities. We also have products and resources that we make available, and we try not to bombard you with too many emails. We are very interested in your feedback. Our funding comes from SAMHSA, as mentioned, and they require that we evaluate our services. Having you complete the brief anonymous surveys is one of the ways that they know what we're providing, the quality of what we're providing, and also supports our ongoing funding. We are recording this session, so please be aware of that and know that the recording will be posted to the School Mental Health Conference webpage within a week's time. Additionally, the slides for the presentation will also be available. Very briefly, we want to note this disclaimer that the opinions expressed herein are the views of the speakers, and they don't reflect any official position by the Department of Health and Human Services or SAMHSA, and no official support or endorsement of the opinions described in this presentation should be inferred. We would love to have you interact with us throughout the presentation. You can do that in a couple of different ways. If you have questions as we go, please feel free to add those to the Q&A pod, and we will ask them of the presenters at the end of their presentation. You can also use the chat feature to communicate with each other, with the facilitators and the presenters of this talk. And also for this session, there will be a couple of poll questions that we'll invite you to participate in as well. This slide just represents the MHTTC's intent and effort to use affirming and respectful language that's recovery oriented, is strengths-based and hopeful, and recognizes the strengths within each individual. With that, I will introduce this last presentation's topic: Social and Emotional Learning Champions Pave the Way, Elevating Teacher Leaders to Support Sustainable SEL. And as I mentioned, we have 3 teachers from the Franklin Elementary School located in Newark, New Jersey, here to present with us. Our own MHTTC Senior Training and Consultation Specialist, Christy Ravalsky, was not available. She had a family emergency that has kept her away from being with us today, but she has worked with our other presenters on this initiative, and they will represent the work that they've done quite efficiently and effectively here today. So just to introduce our speakers, Meredith Gray is a 2nd grade teacher at Franklin Elementary School. She's a member of the school-wide Positive Behavioral Intervention and Supports leadership team, where she's partly responsible for developing the school-wide framework and training her peers. Through this work, she's helped to improve the overall culture and climate of the school, honed her problem-solving skills by learning to prioritize and provide concrete steps to solve issues, and motivate her peers to implement the programs successfully. Kathleen Hooven is a 1st grade bilingual teacher, also at Franklin School, where she was named this year's Teacher of the Year. She's been recognized as a teacher leader among Franklin School community, as a positive behavior intervention and supports champion teacher who embodies SEL practices in her classroom and is leading the charge in shaping a sustainable SEL program within Franklin School through staff development, working with the SWPBIS system, and developing and hosting parent workshops. Paige Miller is a 3rd grade teacher at Franklin School. She plays a leadership role on the SEL team and supports the school-wide positive behavior interventions and support system at Franklin. She's worked to support the development of the vision of the school's culture and climate, and she's worked diligently to implement SEL practices within her own classroom while supporting staff in the building to create and sustain a universal PBIS system. All 3 of our speakers are currently enrolled in a 3-course SEL certification through Rutgers University. Through this coursework, they're developing their knowledge, pedagogy, and practices about social emotional learning and character development. And the coursework includes a 15-week practicum in which they'll apply their knowledge to the classroom setting. So I'm very happy to have each of them with us, and I will turn it over to Kathleen.
Thank you very much. So we're going to start today just by going over our objectives. So we want to make sure that we, at the end of the session, understand approaches for successful SEL implementation. We also want to identify strategies to build sustainable SEL implementation. And we want to describe one school community systematic SEL implementation and discuss lessons learned. And that school is our school, Franklin Elementary. Next slide. So we are going to get started with a poll. And the question is, how are you feeling about going back to school? A, feeling great, looking forward to going back. B, feeling a little anxious. C, worried, or the last one, all of the above? Take a little bit more time to do that. All right. So we can see we have about half of everybody with us today feeling a little anxious, but the other half is mostly feeling all of those things. And the reason we're starting with this poll question is because we wanted to show the range of emotions that we might feel sometimes simultaneously about one topic, and the range of emotions that we feel on a daily basis. Nearly everything we do throughout our lives depends on our emotions. Emotions inform our thinking and decisions, the quality of our relationships, our physical and mental health, and everyday performance. Emotions matter. Think about our emotions as a keyboard. Some children start school having all of their emotional keys, and others are lacking the keys they need to be successful academically and interpersonally. It's our job as educators and parents to help replace the keys that are missing with the necessary social and emotional skills that students need to be successful. Next slide, please. So what is social emotional learning, or SEL? Simply put, it's the skills we need for happiness and success in school, but also in life. It's how we understand ourselves, how we work well with others, and our ability to make good decisions. A formal definition is that SEL is the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy to others, establish and maintain personal relationships, and make responsible decisions. One thing that really stands out to me about this definition is that it doesn't just say children, but it's adults too. SEL is not just for children, but it's for all of us as well. Next slide, please. There was a large study conducted in 2017 that examined data from a number of independent studies to determine overall trends. Here's what the results revealed. SEL shows improvements in attitudes about self, others, and school. This is extremely important and cited by educators as one of the main reasons they value SEL. Positive behavior, specifically in classrooms. This is important, but please be careful not to overemphasize this point, because a lot of times it leads to people thinking that SEL is primarily a behavior management solution, which is a common misperception. It also shows improvements with an 11 percentile point gain on academics. This kind of improvement on academics is what has gotten the attention of so many educators. And don't forget about the data points in red. Reductions in conduct problems is an important finding. But reductions in emotional distress is something to focus on. We're living in a time when emotional distress, depression, anxiety, and suicide are at an all-time high. Understanding that SEL can have an impact here is important, but with a word of caution. SEL should not be viewed as a solution for mental illness, but should be seen as a protective factor. The more protective factors in place, the less likely a young person will develop a mental health or substance use disorder. Next slide, please. Students have been in school most of their lives. They're the real experts. When adults co-create and cultivate a space with students so they can be part of all decisions impacting school culture, the entire school community wins. One of the most popular curricula for SEL is Second Step. However, you don't need a curriculum to implement SEL in schools. There are ways to align SEL with academic objectives. And now I'm going to pass it over to Meredith.
Thank you, Kat. Next slide, please. So now we're going to shift our focus over into SEL in homes and communities. So families really are a child's first teacher. We know that SEL programs are most effective when they extend in the home. So, for example, it looks like this. Holding space for trainings like this one that we're currently doing gives parents the supports to implement these strategies in the home. Next slide, please. So now we're going to take another little poll to kind of gauge where everybody is in their phases of implementation inside your school and your district. So you can be in the organizing stage, the implementation stage, or the improving stage. So we're going to give everybody a few minutes to answer. Just a few more seconds. All right, so we see that it was everybody is in a different stage, but many people answered either organizing, implementing, or improving. So everybody's kind of in a different phase, which is awesome to see the work that you guys are doing inside your schools and districts. Next slide, please. So now building your foundation. So to build your foundation, it really will be strong if you have administrator buy-in, you have an SEL team that is established, a foundational learning of some sort, and engaging key stakeholders, whether that's community members, parents, teachers, and students. Next slide, please. So in designing your SEL program, it's important to examine existing Tier 1 interventions and then tailor to meet your school's situation and desired outcomes. No one blueprint can ensure successful implementation. You have to consider your student population, other initiatives, and the unique needs of your particular school to identify the program design that is best suited for your school. Some schools decide to do a combination of both to meet their needs. Next slide, please. How many of us have heard, oh, we tried that program, it didn't work, or we did that a few years ago, but we stopped implementing? This is the continuous cycle we find ourselves in, trying new programs over and over again for them to fail and having staff become increasingly frustrated. The best thing we can do when building Tier 1 supports is develop a sustainability plan as we build and implement. How do we plan for long-term success despite budget changes, new trends, change in staff and administration? Next slide, please. 14 SEL program sites, including at least one site in New Jersey, which is a huge bonus, identified as models in the 1997 guide, promoting social and emotional learning. Guidelines for educators were interviewed. The interviews utilized a previously piloted interview and assessment guide that operationalized 3 aspects of sustainability: motivation and readiness, implementation support system, and ongoing validation mechanisms. These aspects are detailed in the article. Elias identified the following 6 program features that support sustainability. Number 1, intervention by program developers to engage new administrators. Admin need more than local support when it comes to implementing evidence-based programs. Local support is necessary, but not enough to sustain program. Number 2, program consultation offered to school staff. Consults/experts in this area offer a wide range of ways to address common issues from their experiences supporting other schools. Additionally, they are often aware of new initiative approaches to help support implementation efforts. Number 3, ongoing training and professional development. Changes in staff require continuous training and coaching support. This training should not be limited skill development, but also opportunities to collaborate and reflect on practices. Number 4, deep involvement of teams of teachers who also model program principles. Identify your SEL champions early. These will be teachers who are eager to learn, show a genuine interest, willingness to participate, and model SEL behavior. If you are in the organizing phase, consider providing staff with a brief overview of SEL, share your vision and implementation plan, and have staff vote. This will help you determine how many teachers, staff will be committed to the process. Number 5, programs integrated into whole school scope and sequence. The best way to ensure sustainability is to have your program integrated into your school's culture and climate. This is something we're going to touch on when we talk about our school too. Number 6, districts develop capacity to assume some sort of the cost. Grant funding is great, but relying on external funding can be problematic in the long run. District investment shows importance and helps sustain programs. Next slide, please. Now that we have addressed the important aspects of SEL, we want to share how SEL started in our school, what our process has been like, and where we are heading. Before we do this though, we want to give a little background about our school, Franklin Elementary. Next slide, please. So Franklin Elementary is a K through 6th grade school that is located in Newark, New Jersey. We are currently expanding every year until we hit 8th grade, or till we reach 8th grade. We have 557 total students, and it is composed of 83% Hispanic, 16% Black, and 1% white. 83% of the students who attend our school receive free and reduced lunch, and 23% receive special education services. And we house one of the largest bilingual programs in the district. And now I am going to hand it over to Paige. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, everybody. So I'm here now to talk with you about how we are currently working on our SEL implementation at our school. So this work began for us in 2018 while we were working with a consultant through the New Jersey Coalition for Inclusive Education to ultimately become a more inclusive school. While working to place students in least restrictive settings, we recognized that if their SEL needs weren't addressed, that we weren't going to be able to reach our academic goals. We first received a 1-year grant from the Newark Trust, and we implemented Second Step, which is a curriculum for SEL, as a Tier 1 intervention for students in grades K through 3. So our first piece was starting with the lower grades and with our curriculum.
Please keep in mind that your staff is already starting to leave.
I apologize. We have an announcement in our school building right now.
You're calling someone in.
I apologize for that. We just had an announcement. So like I said, we started implementing with our younger grades with our Tier 1, which was our Second Step curriculum. And from there, teachers were provided coaching as we adopted and got comfortable with the curriculum. The following year, we received another 1-year grant to continue this work. At this time, our school had added 5th grade, and the focus then was implementing the curriculum to the upper grades, 4th and 5th grade classrooms. In 2019 and 2020, we launched our Falcon Buck system. It was a school-wide incentive system where students were able to earn bucks for positive behaviors. At this time, we then had received our 3-year grant, which has really allowed us to do amazing things in the area of SEL and has really helped push us through the pandemic. Next slide, please. So one of the most important things was that we established an SEL team. Especially if you're in the beginning phase, you definitely want to think about your team and staff members that would be great for your team. So we currently have a larger SEL team, and in our team, we outline the responsibilities to help keep us focused throughout the school year. We have representatives from various grade levels, humanities, administrators, and parents involved. We meet monthly to discuss and have meetings amongst the team. And some of the items that we're responsible for are setting and monitoring goals throughout the year, discussing training for teachers, and then, of course, also modeling SEL competencies. Next slide, please. Now, you may have heard us talk about SEL champions earlier in the session, and that's kind of referring to our smaller SEL team. We have a smaller team that meets more on a weekly basis, and this team is responsible for planning our professional development around SEL for staff. We're also developing expertise to help support students and staff with SEL strategies, so kind of helping support teachers with this work. Within this team, it's really important to collaborate, like we've mentioned earlier, with administration to kind of help identify and track individual SEL goals and track them throughout the school year. Next slide, please. So COVID-19 impact. During this past year, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, adjustments really needed to be made in how we wanted to approach and teach SEL. In our district, we were pretty much virtual most of the school year until the very end. So we kind of had to put our thinking caps on and think how we could transfer our SEL practices virtually. With great support from our administration, the team was able to identify self-awareness and self-management as priority competencies from the CASEL framework. We kind of wanted to see what the needs were during the pandemic so that we could address those. Then we identified entry points for the school-wide SEL work through read-alouds. So we chose 3 read-alouds for the school throughout the year. The first one was called I'm Gonna Push Through. The second one was called A Place Inside of Me. And the third one that we chose was called The Best Part of Me. And we were able to use these books to help integrate SEL. We also took advantage of learning being virtual to increase family engagement by conducting more parent workshops virtually with different SEL focuses throughout the year. Next slide, please. So at the end of this past school year in June, it was really important to reflect on our practices and identify some areas of success and some areas of improvement for the upcoming school year. So if you take a look here, these are kind of our glows and grows from last year in terms of SEL implementation. So some highlights were that the staff and community buy-in, we were able to kind of involve the community more through SEL Spirit Weeks and different events virtually, and staff were able to start implementing SEL through their virtual morning meetings. We also noticed consistency with planning amongst teams to provide successful SEL. And something that really stood out was we used a universal screening tool to track growth in the competencies. And by the end of the year in the spring, we saw a lot of growth in multiple competencies. So that was amazing. In terms of growth, these are kind of some things that we're looking forward to working on this school year. So consistency of implementation across grade levels and utilizing data to prioritize grade level SEL needs. So using our screener tools, we receive data and we want to take it the next step by using that data to kind of help us see what the needs are in each grade level. And then as a team kind of plan to how we can support. We also would like to support and coach staff members with best practices. This past year was a little challenging being virtual. So now that we're back in school, in person in the building, we're looking forward to going into classrooms, working with students, and working with staff members to help with SEL. And we also really noticed that we needed consistency around adult SEL. And our last finding was expanding the team to represent the upper grade levels. So as my colleague mentioned earlier, we're expanding our school into middle school. So we want to make sure we're representing across all grade levels within our team. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Kathleen.
Thank you, Paige. So as we prepare for this school year, we want to continue making sustainable gains in SEL. Our focus is going to shift a little bit away from adult SEL in terms of staff and move towards increasing family and student voice. So the way we're going to increase a family, or the role that families play, is through our PTO and increasing parent SEL groups. We also want to expand our current SEL student council's role to include developing and managing a school store. So we're very excited about that. Students have actually already, they ended the year by voting on items they wanted to see in the school store, what would be good motivators. We will also be using the CASEL framework to begin embedding SEL across all other content areas, beginning with focus in literacy. Next slide, please. So these are some tips that we found to be important for us to ensure that we could be successful in establishing SEL within our school. So the first one in orange was administrator buy-in. Something that we were fortunate enough to have very early on was an administrator that was committed to this work. And it helped because as people came in and saw us interacting with a student in a way that maybe wasn't common at the time, by helping students identify that they were feeling strong feelings and they might need to go to the calm down area or the Zen zone, as we call it in our building. It wasn't something abnormal to see a student just get up and identify themselves sometimes that they needed a break and going and taking that time. The one in this purplish gray, establish a team who embraces SEL core values. So this was very important for us because especially, so sorry, like Ms. Miller said earlier, we are in the building and it is very hot, so we have the windows open, so I apologize. As I was saying, establishing a team who embraces SEL core values is important because it helps to work in a small team and just be able to bounce ideas off of each other. At the beginning, the work can be very overwhelming because it can feel very lonely and like you're the only one trying to make these changes. When in reality, I think we find this as teachers in most things, that there are other people in the building who think similarly or embrace similar values. And if you can work with those people, it just helps keep you motivated and help you to be able to more realistically pilot programs before rolling things out to include all staff. In yellow, we have involving all stakeholders. This was very important to us because every stakeholder, every member of the team has an important role to play in student success. And if you notice, we specifically call out staff instead of teachers. In our building, it was very important to us to include our security guards, our cafeteria workers, our custodial staff, our administrators, and teachers and paraprofessionals, because all of these adults are interacting with students regularly. By including everybody, it just helps give a consistent message for students and helps them realize that they have multiple supports. In blue, we have pilot or start small. This work takes a lot of time. As you can see, we started this work in 2018 and we are not done. We still have a lot of ways that we want to improve and grow. And the reality is that the first time that you start this work, it might not go well. But by starting small, you're able to fine tune the work and then slowly be able to increase, and realizing that it doesn't have to go from 0 to 60 in a year. You might start with 1 grade and then now move to 2 grades, and then maybe the next year go to 4 grades. However you decide to roll out, as long as you're making progress. And the last one in green, sharing is caring. We are each other's best resource. Everybody comes to the table bringing their own experiences. So reaching out, even if it's just to troubleshoot a situation or discuss a student's behavior, it might help you realize a perspective that you hadn't thought about before. So with that, we are all done and are going to turn the floor over to questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you to each of our presenters here for that kind of on the ground view of implementing SEL. Now is the time for Q&A. So if you have any questions, if you want to pop them into the Q&A box, that would be great. I have a couple questions already. You had mentioned that you had a consultant supporting you through this process. And I know someone in the chat had inquired who that was, but my question is, for schools that don't have a consultant available to them, do you have any tips for where they could start, some initial first steps that you think would be good for them to take to kind of get things moving forward in terms of implementing SEL?
That's a great question. And I think from all of us, we can say starting with that team. So having your admin kind of help make a team come together and working as a team to kind of work through and using CASTLE, that framework, as a really great starting point. I don't know if Kathleen and Paige want to add on, but I definitely think the team is the best way to start with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with Meredith. And I just think additionally with the team helping to kind of build a foundation of knowledge around SEL, using the CASTLE framework as a starting point is fantastic. They actually have an interactive wheel. So you can click through each competency and it lists what that competency might look like in different settings and gives you examples. It's a very, very helpful tool. And there's also really good resources available in print that you could go towards also.
And to kind of add on to what Meredith and Kathleen said, I think it's also important to establish teacher leaders. So I know that me, Meredith, and Kathleen had started the work because we were very interested in SEL. We were modeling SEL and showing it in our work before we even started this SEL work. So I think alongside establishing the team, really looking for leaders within your building who are interested in the work. And like Kathleen and Meredith said, using those resources through CASTLE to help build knowledge around SEL.
Wonderful. We have a couple of follow-up questions regarding the team component. So the first question reads, how do you compensate your SEL team and SEL champions? And then they ask, duty point, stipend, question mark?
So I'm going to jump in if that's okay with everybody. So when we had grant funding available, we were compensated through the grant, but kind of since we've moved past that funding, initial funding, the compensation for SEL teamwork has shifted more towards either resources in the classroom that are provided for us or additional prep periods that are provided for us. So just finding ways to reinforce and just make I feel as a teacher, I think some of the most valuable things that we can have is just time to do the things that we need to get done. So that's been something super motivating for us.
Wonderful. And another team-related questions, how did you recruit team members so that you aren't creating team after team? So I They asked if you're also doing PBIS or other related initiatives. I know this is a question we get a lot. How do you not just have so many different teams going on, and then the teams are having to coordinate with each other? So how did you recruit, and how do you work with either other teams, or how do you streamline the people involved in this initiative with other related initiatives?
So for us, like I had mentioned earlier, me, Meredith, and Kathleen had started this work because of our interest, but then we knew we wanted to build the team out and make a larger team. So what we did was kind of think about our grade levels at the time. And like we said, it was really important for us to have members across grade levels, the younger grade levels, the older grade levels, even humanities teachers. So then we basically reached out and kind of thought of teachers in mind that had the same vision and goal as we did for the team and for the school, and we're able to kind of recruit members. And we've been kind of lucky that we've been doing this work since 2018, and we've pretty much kept a solid team who are really interested and dedicated to the work. But now that's also an interesting question, because now that we're expanding our school, we're looking to expand the team. So that's actually something that we're looking to do this year. Look at, our upper grade level teachers and see who we can take on board with us. And then the second part of the question was about PBIS. So yes, we are doing a PBIS school-wide system. That is another layer to what we are doing. For us, we had also started this system for PBIS a few years ago, and we're still in the implementing stage and building stage. Obviously, last year when we were virtual, we had to kind of rethink that system as well. And so now, as we're welcoming students back to the building, we're going to continue working on implementing our PBIS system.
It also is really important to remember that even though we do have a PBIS system, it is separate from SEL and the competencies within SEL. So you do not, if you are in the organization phase and the implementation phase, you do not have to worry about putting PBIS, because they are two separate identities. And so SEL comes with its own set of stuff. And so we have worked hard to make sure that we have used different read alouds and stuff and different activities to make sure our SEL programming is also there.
Wonderful, thank you. We have a few more questions. We have a very concrete question about what screening tool you used. You mentioned doing universal screening.
So the screener tool that we use is called the Social, Academic, and Emotional Behavior Risk Screener, also known as SABRS. And our entire school does the same one. In the younger grades, the teachers do fill it out for their students. And then in the older grades, the students start filling it out for themselves, but our whole school uses that screener.
Thank you. Another question, can you talk more about the coaching that you described a little bit? So you talked about, people providing some coaching. Do the champions provide the coaching? Is it someone else? And I know you said, over the past year and a half, it looked a little different, but what are you anticipating it will look like for the coming year?
So when we first began attempting to kind of support teachers through this work, it was the school year that COVID started. So I feel like at this point, it was the 2018-2019 school year. Is that true, Meredith and Paige? Help me out here. Or 2021, yeah. So we actually had teachers fill out a Google form that asked them various questions about their SEL implementation. It had kind of all of our tier 1 implementation included on it. So using how much did they use second step, how much did they embed SEL practices throughout other subjects, what systems did they use to manage their own classrooms. It was a series of questions, and from that, we were able to pull both teachers who kind of felt like they had a good understanding of different aspects of SEL and teachers who needed support. And then as the champions kind of go in and see what those teachers who had that confidence were doing and see if those practices aligned with the vision for the school and what we were learning about in terms of SEL best practice, and helping to kind of pair people up or model ourselves what different SEL strategies might look like. So we're hoping to continue that work this year.
And to add on to that, we actually have a really great opportunity. We'll have 2 preps on Friday. One prep where the 3 of us will be able to meet. And so we're going to be doing coaching bi-weekly sessions. So that way we can get into the classroom and see the SEL work that's being done and support each teacher in the areas that they need and help with any practice questions that they have.
Very good, thank you. Another question, you mentioned the Zen zone. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, what it looks like, how it's used, and how it relates to SEL.
Am I going? I think I'm going. All right. So the Zen zone is my favorite place in the classroom. In my room, everyone's looks a little bit differently. It's not out right now, which is very sad because of COVID, but I have a huge beanbag, and it lives in a spot in my room close to the library. And around that area, we have different, I guess, posters or anchor charts that have different students or children making different facial expressions that align with different emotions. And then we have a wide range of different supports for them. Some people have puzzles, coloring sheets. I usually have coloring sheets that have an emoji spectrum, so kids can kind of try to identify how they're feeling and just take a minute to kind of cool down. And I know, especially at the beginning of the year, I do a lot of modeling, especially if I make a mistake or I get something wrong. I'll tell the students Ms. Kubin is feeling strong feelings. I feel frustrated because I'm trying to use the computer and the computer doesn't want to open. So I'm going to go to the Zen zone and take a minute. And I have a little sand timers in there so the kids can measure how long they've been in there. And there's also different strategies. So at the beginning of the year, it requires a lot of modeling, but eventually the students are able to either identify in themselves or help each other identify that they might be feeling strong feelings, either frustration or anger or being upset, and taking that time to take a step back and get control over those emotions, or just experience those emotions in a safe place and a safe way before going back to the things that they need to do.
And the great thing about the Zen zone, and other people might know it as the calm down corner or the calm down area, it actually hits at least two competencies from the framework. We have self-awareness. So what, like Kat was saying, that they go in there and they might have a poster of different feelings, so they're able to identify their feelings while they're there, as well as self-management by picking a strategy to help themselves calm down. So it's a great place for students to be aware of what they're feeling, as well as practicing their self-management skills.
And to also add on to Meredith and Kathleen, for me in third grade, I also use it as a reflection piece. So since my students are a little bit older and they can, write and everything, detailed writing, I put reflection sheets in there. A lot of students sometimes don't like to vocalize, but they're more comfortable with writing. So I like to have different ways for them to show how they're feeling. And also on top of that, to relate it to SEL, also in our second step curriculum, we have a whole section on emotion regulation. And so through that curriculum, we're teaching different skills or strategies to help with regulating emotions. So I found that it was really easy to make a connection between the Zen zone or the cool down corner and allowing them to practice those skills like belly breathing, our calm down dance, the different things that we learn in the curriculum, they're able to then bring that with them to the cool down corner and kind of practice those skills when they're actually needing them the most.
Thank you. And there's a comment in the chat that I think is great, which says it's a great thing to have in the classroom. It would also be great to have parents or caregivers replicate this at home. So really, integrating for the student that practice and that self-regulation in both environments. So thank you for talking about that a little bit more. We are getting close to the end, but we have a few more minutes. So I wanted to ask one more question. It is, what do you wish you'd known when you were starting this initiative? Looking back, you didn't know it then, but looking back now, you wish you had known it, and maybe that's some helpful information that you could pass along to some other participants here.
Before we answer that question, can I just jump on the comment that was made earlier?
Sure.
About the parents and caregivers replicating this at home? I just wanted to share that something that we did, I think we mentioned it, I don't exactly remember, but that we did SEL Spirit Weeks. So one of the activities, one of those weeks actually was helping to develop your own calm down area at home. So it was a really, really exciting thing to see the students be able to engage in at home and to share that learning with their families. I feel like I'm talking a lot. Is it okay if I start answering the last one?
Go for it.
I think something that I wish that I had known at the beginning of this is that SEL is not I'm going to say a discrete subject. It is in so much of what we do already. And I think that at the beginning, I was so caught up in like, it needs to be like this and it needs to be like that, until I realized like, oh, wait, like I feel things very intensely, I guess is a good way to explain it. And so I am very conscientious about talking through my feelings out loud. And I'd never identified that that is modeling self-awareness for students and helping give them the language to do it themselves. It's much less intimidating when you kind of take a look and see, what do I already know about SEL? What do I already do that's SEL? And it helps it feel a little bit more manageable, because I know with so many things on our list to do every day, it can seem overwhelming to do one more thing. So that's something I wish I had known at the beginning.
To kind of go off what Kat said, I wish I had known how important practice was for the students themselves, and to give them so many chances within the classroom, and even utilizing like real life situations that they go through as a reflection point or as an SEL kind of moment to take in, because it's so important for students to really practice, to understand like what is going on, and to help them internalize the skills and activities that we have.
I think for me, I, before this work, thought that SEL was a separate entity. And I think for me now, knowing how important and crucial it is for SEL to be integrated within what we're already doing in the classroom, within our academics and our curriculum. I know for our school, that's a big goal for us in terms of SEL, is integration within academics. And so I wish back then I knew that that was probably the most important and crucial piece to SEL, was the integration.
Thank you all so much. It's really helpful and insightful information to have. So recognizing both what you're already doing that kind of falls within this framework and is supportive to the social emotional development of your students, recognizing that you have to give them the opportunities to try and practice and practice and practice. It does We're all still, I think, developing those skills. So it's no wonder that students need those opportunities and that it's really integrated, and the importance of integrating it throughout the work. All of that's really critically important. So thank you. Thank you for joining us today for your talk and for sharing with us your experiences. For those of you who have attended, we thank you for your attendance. You do see here on the screen and a link in the chat to fill out the brief survey. I'll also ask and remind for those of you who have been on earlier that we are conducting a needs assessment. We would love for you to complete that. You can use the QR code here on the screen, or the link has been posted in the chat to complete that so that we know what it is that you really need the most support and assistance with, so that we can develop activities and tools and resources around that. Again, there are resources available to you and to share with others. We will also add these resources to our resource page on our website. So if you would like to visit there, you can. Again, just a reminder that tomorrow we have another set of really wonderful presentations starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. The secret sauce for building successful homeschool partnerships came up today a little bit already. So there'll be more discussion of that tomorrow morning. And again, if you'd like to connect with us or you have questions, please use our email address is the best way to do it, northeastcaribbean@mhttcnetwork.org. You can also go to our website and our contact information will be there. So with that, I want to thank the presenters again for their wonderful information and resources, and thank all of you who have participated in this session and the other sessions throughout the day. And we hope to see many of you tomorrow for the second day of our conference. So be well. Take good care of yourselves this afternoon and this evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks so much.